I first came to Woodstock for a weekend visit with Ron Marions. Actually, we drove motorcycles up. And Ron had a place on Plockman Lane. It was actually called the Plockman House. Really set back, you never see it from the road. On Plockman Lane. Had a huge master living room with a monstrous fireplace and a grand piano and a couple of couches. And it was just a perfect hidden, it just reeked of art and soul and spirit. And I came with him, and there were some interesting guests that weekend. There was a photographer by the name of Bob Richardson, who was on the edge of fashion, but was more or less now getting into what was called then eavesdropping, setting up cameras and photographing people in their reality, and doing it in grainy black and white, and he was a pretty interesting character, as well as very talented, and also very high on some, I don't know, rat poison or something that particular weekend. And he was with Angelica Houston. And so coming up here with Ron and riding the motorcycle and just revealed a whole new entity of life to me. And everybody cooked, and there was food all weekend, and went down to the Woodstock meat market, and the guy played the trumpet. Jerry Simonetti, every time he bought something, he would play something on the trumpet. And I mean, I really I went down the rabbit hole for me, and something that was a part of me connected what I was suddenly seeing for the first time. And I was very comfortable with it. Became a weekend thing for me to come up. And very early that was maybe November of 1968. And by spring of 1969, I rented a house at the Peter Pan Farm with the Vosses for the summer. It was the little house that's set up on the hill, and you could see the whole thing underneath. And that was the summer of '69. Right. Was the summer of the Woodstock. Right. And I consider it a credit to my race that I did not go to the Woodstock Festival. I did not go. We had motorcycles. Ron wanted to go on his motorcycle. We were going to be able to stay in the tent with the Swami, and I'm not going to do this. It's raining. Plus, that summer, so many people had come to the Peter Pan Farm. Janis Joplin was there. All the guys from Paul Butterfield's band were there. Not Tim Harden, the kid that lives in Woodstock now. He's not a kid anymore, must be older than me. Tim, he's a musician, good musician. He was living there. And in the big house, there were a couple of guys living with young girls. I mean, young girls, 12, 13, 14 years old. And there was a sort of craziness that I could not relate to. And I had an experience with Janis Joplin. And one of the kids was walking by, and she was getting out of her car, and she said, "Take these bags up to my room over there." And he said, "Go fuck yourself." It was an interesting summer, but it was also the summer that they landed on the moon. That summer, and it was just it was just an experience that I loved and related to. And when they all left to go to Woodstock, to the festival, I said, I got the whole place to myself. And so I eventually, that pretty much led to my separation from the advertising business, which was, I gotta say, it was inspired by my being drawn to Woodstock rather than rejecting advertising. I had no problem with advertising. It treated me really, really well. And I was good at it, and I was successful at it, and I have lifelong friendships that I still maintain from, I mean, in person. By the way, I've maintained a lot of long-time relationships. It's a blessing in my life. My best friend was my roommate at college. You know, and we still see each other, still hang out, send each other paintings, and we draw together and write to each other. And so I guess friendship and reality turns me on. And I thought Woodstock had that reality. Even though it's like fairyland, no, it's reality. I was very impressed that there were guys who could really use a hammer and a saw, could build a set of stairs with a square and a cross cut. That really impressed me. That you could have, if you had an idea, you could execute it in 2 days. Get a couple of guys together and you could execute and build stuff. I like that a lot. And one of the weekends that I was staying at Ron's house, like I said, because I was being drawn to Woodstock, I was driving a little Porsche, a Porsche Roadster, 1600. It was school bus yellow and red leather. And I was coming down Plockman Lane, and I lost my brakes. And just barely maneuvered it enough so that I didn't have to go into the golf course. And we pushed it. I said, oh, what am I going to do now, Ron? I'm on my way back home to the city. He said, we'll push it up here to Ken Reynolds gas station. So we pushed the little Porsche up to the gas station, left it, put the keys on. Ron said, just leave the keys in the car. Forget about it. I mean, where am I? You know, I'm living in New York City. I came out of Newark. Leave your yellow Porsche with the keys in it. Forget about it. So that appealed to me right away. So the next day, and I think this might have sealed the deal. The next day I called Ken Reynolds at the, do you remember? Well, it doesn't matter. Ken Reynolds. I said, excuse me, Mr. Reynolds, my name is Barry Ballister. He said, is that your piece of shit in the driveway, in my driveway? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, it needs a new brake line. I said, oh, good, thanks. I said, well, I won't be up till Friday. Is that okay? He said, I don't know what I'm going to do this piece of shit. I'll put it somewhere. So I said, okay. I said, what do I owe you? He said, $16. Wait a minute. I just left my car with the keys in it. You fixed it without even me telling you. And it's $16. I said, I want to live here. It seems right to me.
That really sealed the deal.
That sealed the deal. So, and then that spring, that winter was quite an adventure. I remember going deep into the woods during a snowstorm. And Ron carried out this giant gong, Chinese gong, and he dressed in samurai robes. I'm mixing samurai with Chinese, I know, but so what? So he's got his robes, and he's got a big bowl of hash and a fire and a thermos of hot tea. And we sat out in the snowstorm all night.
Wow.
bonging. And at one point, I started to see the snowflakes one at a time. And it was surreal, but actually real. Time stopped, or at least slowed down enough that I could, for the first time in my life, seize the moment and see it in its standstill. And I just, as I said, I kept being drawn. Every experience drew me closer and closer. And that spring, I was at the Peter Pan Farm, or that summer. Ron takes me out to the fruit stand. What was called Mazzetti's fruit stand.
Where was it?
Same place.
I
It
never
was a
knew
little
this.
fruit stand. And it was totally filled with garbage. Refrigerators, junk cars, wires, barbed wires, all the effluvium of people's throwaways, piled. And there was this fruit stand. Wasn't really quite that bad at that time, but it was starting to get there. And I bought some stuff, and Ron says to me, "Why don't you buy this, Barry?" I said, "What, are you crazy? I grew up in the fruit business. I wouldn't come near this place." He says, "Well, it's a great place." I said, "It's dirty, it's ugly, it's funky, it's a terrible fruit stand." The little old man is drinking his glass of wine and smoking a cigarette behind the counter. The picture hangs in Sunfrost still of the old man smoking a cigarette with a little glass of wine. And he looks up from behind the cash register and he says, "You don't like it? Why don't you buy it?" I said, "I'm not, forget it, that's the last thought on my mind." So that was my first exposure to the fruit stand. I was at the cusp of taking that leap forward in my advertising career. I was senior vice president. I was 34 years old. I just finished a trip around the world, educating we were in 31 countries. I went to almost all of them and was teaching the Ted Bates technique to our new international affiliates. The unique selling proposition, the repetitiveness of dramatic commercials, repeat the same message over and over, treat your consumer like an idiot because they are, and teaching that to, here I am in Hong Kong, I am in Tokyo teaching these ancient cultures the new way. We made I was in the middle of a presentation to the Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, which was a new oil company. It was formed by Sinclair and Atlantic Richfield, and it was a new company called Arco. And so I was going up on weekends to Woodstock and doing this intense work back at the office, and doing this, always having to deal with the international situation. It was an overload. So I did this campaign and we presented it. And my hair was down to here. My hair was down to here. I'd grown a beard. I wasn't wearing a suit. I was just doing whatever I felt like doing. I got this, certainly inspired by what I was seeing. There's another way of life. Yeah. There's another way of life. You're a butcher who blows a trumpet, and he's really there, and his meat is great. And we had this huge presentation, and the company was really nervous about me. And they said, "Well, I said, all right, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll look good. Don't worry about it. And Ron Marians, who was working for me at Ted Bates, said, I want 24 hours with you. I said, okay. He took me out all day. We bought a pair of shoes, which I still have, a new suit, big, thick Sulka tie, shaved my beard, cut my hair, went to the baths on 19th Street, took the brushes with the old Russian guys and the rubs, and drank some kind of tea, and he took me for 24 hours and groomed me. Imagine Ron Marian's grooming me. And I woke up the next day, my eyes were like pinholes of light. I walked there in the room gasped. Beautiful suit, you know.
The room gasped.
The room gasped, and they said, what happened to you? I said, hey, you didn't like my other stuff. So we made the presentation, and it went great. And then we get a letter from the Atlantic Richfield Company, and it said, your creative presentation was so far superior to anything we saw from any other agency that we wanted you to know that it was the best. Except we find that your management has archaic ideas about marketing. And so we're going with somebody else. And I went into the president's office, and I went crazy. I said, you guys are doing things like we're doing it 20 years ago. You know, we can do it. We can grow. We can get even more business. Let's throw out the tobacco business. It's dead anyway. And we'll seek new businesses, and we'll work in the areas of the evolution of energy, and we'll start to find food products that are better for people, and we'll try and expand our client list in another whole new way. And they said, when you become president, you can do that. I said, okay, when am I going to be president? They said, well, we got this to go out, he has to quit, and this guy has to retire, and we got to split up the stock. We figure about 5 years. I said, I can't wait 5 years. And I left, walked out the door. I went to Woodstock.
Tell us about that.
And it was frightening, you know. All of a sudden the check stopped.
Yeah.
I rented I had an 8-room apartment in New York City in a brownstone. I rented it to Richie Havens, sublet it to Richie Havens, and put all my stuff under a false name in storage, all my stuff. And that was it. I didn't know what to do. I just hung out. And then we decided we'd buy a house. And we bought a house in Stone Ridge, and it was more than I can manage. I was really a greenhorn. And I think I would have been more sensitive to what I had, but I wasn't. Anyway, we sold the house. And we went to Europe. I went to Europe for 5 years. No, 2 years, with my son and Judy.
2 years?
2 years. From 1970 to 1972. 1971 till 1972. Probably almost 2 years. And I was in Amsterdam, and I was living on a houseboat. And we were hanging out. I had my son, my great son. He was 12 years old, Judy. And I'm on the houseboat, and these people come by, and they said, oh, we heard you were from Woodstock, and we just came from Woodstock, and we just came from the greatest restaurant in the world. I said, yeah, where? The greatest restaurant in the world in Woodstock, New York? They said, yeah, the Joyous Lake. I said, oh. I said, I was the original partner in the Joyous Lake. I said, but I didn't think I was going to like it, so I came here to Europe instead. So we were getting ready to close up. We had a lot of adventures, and I came back, and the first place I went to was to see Ron at the Joyous Lake. And I said, wow, this is really good, Ron. Congratulations, you've done well. It's so funny. He said, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life? I said, what do you mean? I just got back. What do you mean I'm going to do with my life? He said, well, you better figure out what you're going to do with your life. You've been wasting it for 2 years already. Okay. I said, right now I'm going out to Wittenberg to buy a house. And I was on my way out to Wittenberg on Route 212. I see the fruit stand. Shuttered. Locked up. It was June. Maybe July, but I think June, late in June. I said, how could I got out of the car? I looked inside. Now the garbage was everywhere. Really piled up junk. I looked inside, and everything that was on the stand was rotted. Nobody took anything down. There must have been rats in there. Beets were rotting, cabbages, salads. It was all on the stand, rotting. I said, how could this be? It's a fruit stand. It's the summer. It's Woodstock. Something's wrong here. And I see a guy way in the back, in the little house in the back. I see him walking around. So I sauntered back and I said, hey, bud, what's with the fruit stand? He said, why? What do you want to know for? And out of my mouth came, I want to rent it. He said, you're an outsider, aren't you? I said, yeah, I guess. He said, they hate outsiders here. You'll never survive. I said, how about I pay you all the rent in advance? He said, I want $600 a month. I said, by the time I get open, it's August. By the time it's 3 months, the season's over. I'll pay you 3 months in advance, but I'm only going to pay you $200 a month. And you got to give me running water. He said, okay, but I want a lease. So I ran to Jerry Wapner, everybody's lawyer friend.
Right.
He typed me up a lease really fast. I said, thanks, Jerry. I went back. We both signed it. Me and the guy signed it. And he ran inside, came back with his scissors, and cut off all the blank white space on the lease. So it was this like little shapy thing. I said, what are you doing that for? He said, I don't want anybody to change the conditions. I don't want you to add anything when I'm... Oh, this is my landlord. Oh, my God. And I said, okay. So I went to work. I went back out to Wittenberg, bought the house. So one day I bought a business and a house. And one day, like that. And I was there. That was it. No sweat, no pain. I didn't even ask Judy. Didn't even ask Judy.
So what was the climate like? Like you start to open this fruit stand. So did you encounter like opposition from the building department, or what happened? How did you get it up and running, and what was that like? Was that okay? Good question.
I didn't know anything about any building codes or regulations, so I just did it. I mean, I really just did it. Who do I call for insulation? I asked guys around. Well, Ron knew. Ron knew a lot of guys. Call this guy. Call this guy. And I hired John Voss, whose parents owned the Peter Pan Farm, and Beazle, John Beazle. And they came to work after they quit, after their whatever carpentry job they were working on. They would come over to me around 5 o'clock, and they'd carpenter for me. And there was another guy that was doing really good electrical work. That he put in an electrical system for me. I didn't have running water, but we ran a hose back from the... And I just worked during the day when they weren't there. John and Warren weren't there. Warren Beazle, not John Beazle. Warren Beazle. I would make a stand, create a little piece of something, I built it just like it was my father's fruit stand that I grew up in. I grew up in a fruit stand. So I just copied it. Just, that's what I knew. And I was ready. We just did it and I opened it up, and I opened Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday till 1 o'clock.
What was the community reception like? Remember to say the community reception was.
The people, the community had known about the stand for many years, and I think they were sort of, one, anxious to have a farm stand open again, and two, curious about this weird guy that, I was wearing sackcloth, not sackcloth, but flower shirts from Guatemala, and weird clothes and hair down here, and had a great big mustache. And Judy was walking around in her bikini, cleaning the dump, throwing stuff, and it was just so bizarre. And it was just so that was, but you realize that Woodstock is bizarre. So I'm really not standing out. I'm just part of what they're already used to. And but when I opened with "Please don't touch the fruit," they didn't know what to do about that. Here was me expressing my personal philosophy about food retailing, which I still believe in, and this land of freedom. Everybody's free to do everything. And but we took in $160 the first day in 1972. That's like a $1,000 day today. That was a really good day's business. And a couple days later, actually, Albert Grossman came in. He became my biggest fan. He supported me all the time. He brought Milton Glaser there. He brought his musicians there. He was Bob Thurman. And I gave Uma Thurman her first piece of fruit when she was a tiny, tiny baby. They stopped on the way home from the hospital, and I squeezed a grape into her mouth. I asked, "Can I do this?" He said, "Sure." I squeezed this grape into her mouth. Years later, she came in with some race car driver from Italy. And she said, "Oh, this is Ricardo." And he said, "Prince Ricardo." And she said, "Oh, wait a minute. This is the only prince I know." He gave me my first piece of fruit. And so I really had no problem with the community. I did have daily encounters with people who didn't understand the philosophy of "Please don't touch the fruit."
Do you remember any specific reactions or interactions around that issue?
Yes. One day, for instance, there was I had these peaches. I was the only guy that I had them anywhere. Guy picked them specially for me over in Port Ewan on River Road, A.R. Mott. They were about that big, like small softballs, and they were pink and soft green and white. And if you touched them, they put a brown spot on them instantly. They were pure sugar. And I had a little display, a flash, we called them a flash, a little stand about this big, so you could see them. And then I had them in baskets. And this woman came in and she started squeezing. I said, "Everyone is perfect, ma'am. You don't have to touch them. And please let me wait on you, because they are precious and valuable and perfect. But you can't touch them or you'll bruise them." And she did it up. I said, "Excuse me," and the store was packed. I took all the peaches in the back. Told one of the guys, "Get them, put them away." I said, "Now nobody gets peaches." Nobody can have any. No.
Did you put them back out?
Yeah, after she left. And I said, "Okay, now we can have peaches." And nobody would touch them. No. I really was the original soup Nazi.
You were.
I was the.
Could you talk about like the qualities that you felt were very Woodstock in your starting your business, living here? How would you describe the Woodstocky qualities?
Well, once you get into business, you get involved in the community. I felt that once I got entrenched in the business and had a home, it's hard not to get involved in the business if you're alive and well.
Yeah.
I mean, in the community. And I got involved in some of the politics. I was named chairman of the Town Properties Commission. And had my advertising background, and I knew how to do statistics and write questionnaires. And we wrote a wonderful questionnaire about what would you like to have. Here's the list of our town properties. How do you think we should use Andy Lee Field? How do you think we should use the new Como property? How do you think we should use the old town hall? I just opened the store about 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, standing in the doorway, we used to have to take the doors off every day. Have to take the doors off because if you opened them, there was no room to have a fruit stand. So we take the doors off and stack them on the side of the building, and put the doors back on every night. Anyway, I look at one of the doorways and standing in the doorway, smoking a cigarette and being cranky. Sally Grossman. She is smoking a cigarette. I said, "Hey, Sally, how you doing?" She said, "I give you 2 weeks." Turned around and walked away. That's one of my favorite stories about her. Another one was when Milton Glaser and his lovely wife would come. They were right out of House and Gardens. They had the Volvo station wagon, and they'd come out, each had their own basket. He would buy the vegetables, and she would buy the fruits. And I'd have to make them up to look like a photograph for one of his posters. Carry them out to the car and put them in the car like fruit baskets, still lifes. And they would come every Saturday morning at 10:15 in the morning. And they came for years and years and years. And there was another lady, Susan Bear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Susan Bear.
Doll.
Oh, the best. Great, crazy lady. I pulled in I had my little Jeep, and I pulled in one day and I was coming from the mushroom farm. And I was pulled in, and Michael runs out and he says, Barry, follow that car. She stole the mother sign. Well, we had signs and we would hang them in the store, and one would say mother, one would say living on a cloud, the box ends from the fruit, which were very wonderful at the time. He said, she stole the mother sign. I'll get it. I'll jump in my car, I follow her. He takes me up, follow up Mead Mountains Road and all the way up, and then a side road and over into a creek and over a creek in the middle of the woods. This little cabin in the middle of the woods. She jumps out of the car and she said, "Ha, I knew I could get you up here." By stealing the mother sign. I said, "Give me my sign." Crazy old lady.
Now, after these 2 weeks went by and Sally Grossman came back, I assume, did you ever say anything to her about?
I never saw her in the store again. I think she never came. She doesn't do a lot of shopping.
Yeah.
She has people shop for her. Michael Word would come down. No, I never brought it up to her. I didn't bring it up to Albert.
Yeah.
Truth speaks for itself.
Do you want me to ask these two?
May as well, but
Why
I think
not?
it's really been a great interview.
Yeah, it's a great interview. Okay, give us a phrase or credo that guides your life.
Principle before profit. Principle. If I had to create besides my faith in my Savior, is principle before profit. I tell that to Matthew all the time.
Does he listen?
Sometimes. He gets himself in trouble. You know, he lets people run bills up, thousands and thousands of dollars, and don't pay him. I say, don't serve him. When you are the best, and you give the best service and have the best product at the best price, they will not abandon you. If they don't pay you, cut them off. They will come back.
And the last question is.
And another credo.
What?
Every minute you spend worrying about your competition is 1 minute less you have for your own business.
That's a good one. This is the end of the formal questions. How has living in Woodstock influenced you? Or how would you say Woodstock influenced you? One of the things about living in Woodstock that not only influenced me but changed my life was that one, it reaffirmed the possibilities that you realize are available to you. You're no longer channeled, you're exposed. And that influenced my life. When the people you deal with every day can show you a new brushstroke or turn you on to a new book or a poem, or you hear somebody's new piece of music for the first time and they play it for you out in the yard, and you see the possibilities and they stimulate you to encourage you to do more things. I've been dealing now with ceramics and pottery, and I've broken through some very interesting achievements. You know, they're small, but they're breakthroughs. When you're 80 years old, and you reach into your pocket, you take out a piece of clay and you start to play with it. And you really start to play with it, and then you twist it, and something comes out that you've never seen before, that you only imagine. Where did this come from when I see it in other places? How did that guy do that? And I think Woodstock gave me the opportunity to know that I could do it myself. It may not be as polished, it may not be, you know, but Woodstock stimulated me to do a lot of things I had never done before. To paint, to write a book, to do ceramics, to carve. I love to carve. I don't do enough of it, but I love to do that. And carpentry. You know, I built my own house. That little house, even though I built it wrong and I made mistakes. It was beautiful.
People paid us to come and get married in that house.
It was really beautiful.
And I mean, could I have done that if I had been living on Waverly Place and 6th Avenue? No, wasn't going to happen.